Imagine stepping onto your favorite cruise ship in 2026, expecting the same smooth, relaxing vacation you've always enjoyed, only to discover that everything has changed. Prices are higher, perks are disappearing, and the entire cruising experience feels different in ways no one warned you about. That's because the cruise industry is preparing for 5 major shifts. And honestly, these changes might make you rethink your next sailing. Some of them will hit your wallet, others will affect where you can travel, and a few will completely reshape what you can or can't do once you re-on board. Stay with me until the very end, because the last change is the most shocking and the one most cruisers still don't know about. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into a topic every cruiser needs to hear, especially if you're planning to book a trip in 2026. Cruise industry is going through one of the biggest overhauls we've seen in years, driven by new environmental regulations, rising costs, and shifting company policies. And while some changes are meant to improve sustainability or streamline operations, the truth is they might make the overall cruising experience more complicated, more expensive, and for some travelers, a lot more frustrating. In this video, we'll break down the 5 terrible changes coming to cruises in 2026, why they're happening, and what they mean for your future vacations. So grab your notepad, stay tuned, and let's get into it. Point 1. Higher mandatory fees and taxes. Cruising has always been known as a budget-friendly vacation where everything feels bundled into one simple price. But in 2026, that idea is going to change dramatically because cruise lines and governments are rolling out a series of new mandatory fees and taxes that passengers cannot avoid. These aren't optional add-ons, and they are not upgrades. They are charges that will quietly show up in your final payment or even after you've booked your trip. The main reason for this shift is the rise in cost of operations. Cruise companies are struggling with increased fuel prices, stricter environmental requirements, higher crew salaries, and more expensive port agreements. Instead of dramatically increasing base fares, which might scare customers, away cruise lines are now spreading these expenses into smaller, less noticeable fees that add up fast. In 2026, many major ports are introducing new tourism taxes, environmental protection fees, and marine conservation surcharges. These can range anywhere from $15 to $40 per passenger per port. It doesn't sound like much at first, but when you multiply that by several stops, plus multiple travelers in one family, the total becomes significant. Fuel surcharges are also returning because cruise lines must switch to greener fuels or pay compliance fines, and both of those costs end up on your bill. And unlike tips or internet packages, fuel surcharges cannot be removed or declined. On top of that, cruise lines are introducing new administrative fees that most guests have never seen before. Things like processing fees, digital access charges for app features that used to be free, and handling fees for port services may quietly sneak into your invoice. A typical week-long cruise may now come with an extra $150, $300 in unavoidable fees for a single traveler and double or triple that for a family. What's concerning is that many of these fees aren't clearly shown up front. You might book a cruise because the price looks reasonable, but once you get to checkout or receive your final statement, the total looks nothing like what you expected. The bottom line is that cruising in 2026 won't just feel more expensive. It will be more expensive, even for basic economy-level experiences. The era of transparent, flat cruise pricing is ending, and travelers will need to pay much closer attention to the fine print before booking. Point 2. Stricter itineraries and fewer popular ports. One of the biggest appeals of cruising is visiting multiple destinations in one trip. But in 2026, many passengers will be shocked to see that cruise itineraries look very different. Due to environmental concerns, overcrowding, and new government regulations, several popular cruise destinations are imposing strict limits on how many ships can visit each day or banning large ships entirely. Places like Venice, Santorini, Juneau, and parts of the Caribbean have already taken steps in this direction. But in 2026, these restrictions will expand even further. This means cruise lines may need to remove iconic ports and replace them with smaller, less popular alternatives. Imagine booking a Mediterranean cruise expecting to visit Venice, only to discover that the ship is now docking at a port 2 hours away because Venice denied access. Some destinations are also switching to reservation systems, where ships must apply months in advance for limited spots. If a larger or higher-paying ship gets priority, yours may lose its slot. The result is more revised itineraries, more last-minute changes, and a greater chance of disappointment for passengers who booked their trip specifically for certain locations. Environmental rules are also tightening. Some regions are enforcing wider buffer zones around reefs and protected coastlines, meaning cruise ships can no longer dock as close as before. In some cases, passengers want to be allowed to get off at all because tender boats aren't too permitted in environmentally sensitive areas. This leads to more scenic cruising days nice to look at, but disappointing when you expected time on land. Another impact is shorter port visits. New safety and weather rules require stricter thresholds for wind, waves, and visibility. Ports may cancel or reduce docking time if conditions are even slightly unstable, and cruise lines must comply. In 2026, sea days will increase across many itineraries because it's simply easier and safer for cruise lines to avoid risky ports altogether. All of this means travelers need to adjust their expectations. If you're cruising for destinations, you might feel limited. If you love sea days, you may not mind, but overall, cruising in 2026 will involve more unpredictability, fewer iconic stops, and tighter rules that reshape the classic port hopping experience. Point 3. Major cutbacks and included amenities. Cruises have always marketed themselves as the perfect all-in-one vacation. Unlimited food, endless entertainment, and plenty of activities without extra charges. But as operational costs rise and cruise lines look for new ways to increase revenue, 2026 will mark a major shift in what is actually included in your fare. Slowly, the all-inclusive feel is being replaced with an everything is an upgrade model. Dining is the area guests will notice most. Buffet selections are expected to shrink. Late-night food options may only be available at specialty venues. And some main dining room dishes may now come with small surcharges, something already tested on a few lines. Items like steak, lobster, premium desserts, and certain international cuisines might require a fee even in the main dining room. Room service charges, which have already begun, will expand further. On many lines, you'll pay per order, and free room service might only be available during limited hours. Entertainment cutbacks are also coming. Broadway-style shows, comedy clubs, and live bands will still exist, but some premium shows may require reservations or paid access. Even basic onboard activities like fitness classes, cooking demos, and craft workshops, which were once free, are increasingly turning into paid experiences. Cruise lines have realized that passengers will pay for convenience, exclusivity, or novelty, and they're using that demand to generate more onboard revenue. Another big change is in cabins and housekeeping. Daily cabin cleaning may no longer be standard. Some lines are already testing once-a-day service or asking passengers to opt in if they want more frequent cleaning. Extra towels, priority laundry service, and even certain toiletries may be sold as add-ons instead of included perks. Pool deck entertainment, kids clubs, and sports activities may also face limitations, pushing families toward paid experiences like escape rooms, VR arcades, upgraded water slides, private clubs, and premium lounges. And while cruise lines will promote these as new and exciting, the reality is that many free options are quietly disappearing. Overall, cruising in 2026 will still be enjoyable, but only if you adjust your expectations. The base fare will cover the basics, but many things you once enjoyed for free will now come with a price tag. The experience will feel more à la carte, and passengers will need to budget accordingly to avoid surprises. Point 4. Digital-only onboard systems. The cruise industry is moving rapidly toward digital-only systems, and in 2026 this transition becomes nearly complete. What started as a convenience, using an app for check-in or booking dining, will now become a requirement on many lines. Paper schedules, onboard maps, printed menus, and even physical keycards may disappear, replaced by app-based features and wearable devices. While tech-savvy travelers may appreciate the modernization, many guests, especially seniors, will find it frustrating and overwhelming. Starting from embarkation, passengers may need to use the cruise line's app for everything: check-in, muster drills, boarding passes, and even locating their cabin. Once on board, the app becomes the central control hub. Want to book a show? Use the app. Want to reserve dinner? Use the app. Want to join a trivia game or sign up for a shore excursion? Everything goes through the digital system. Without a smartphone, your ability to enjoy the cruise becomes extremely limited. The removal of paper planners means you can no longer rely on the classic daily schedule left in your cabin. Instead, you must constantly check the app for updates, alerts, and schedule changes. For travelers who like unplugging on vacation, this becomes a major inconvenience. Some cruise lines are even linking Wi-Fi features to the app, meaning you might need basic internet even if it's free to access your daily information. Another concern is tech glitches. If the app crashes, your reservations may disappear. If your phone freezes or dies, you may not be able to sign up for activities or even access your cabin if the ship uses digital keys. And although cruise lines will promote wearable tech as a solution, these devices often come with fees or require pre-cruise registration. Customer service desks, once heavily staffed, may also reduce personnel, shifting most questions to the app's chat system. This means longer wait times, fewer real humans to help you, and more dependency on technology. While digital systems help cruise lines cut costs and improve efficiency, many passengers will feel the downside: less personal service, more screens, and a constant need to manage everything through an app. The shift will modernize cruising, but it will also create challenges for travelers who prefer a simpler, more traditional experience. Point 5. New environmental rules. 1. Of the least talked about but most impactful changes coming in 2026 is the introduction of new international environmental regulations that require cruise ships to reduce their speed in many regions. These speed limits are designed to lower emissions, protect marine life, and comply with climate-focused maritime standards. But for passengers, the results will be noticeably different: longer travel times, more sea days, and shorter port visits. When ships are forced to travel slower, they need more time to move between destinations. A route that used to take 10 hours might now take 14 or more, meaning the ship arrives later and leaves earlier. This cuts into your time exploring ports, reduces excursion options, and creates a more rushed feeling during stops. Some ports may even be removed altogether because slower travel makes the timing impossible. Itineraries will increasingly feature extra sea days to compensate for slower speeds. While many people enjoy sea days, adding more of them can reduce the variety and excitement of the trip, especially for travelers who book specifically for destinations. And because cruise lines cannot extend trips indefinitely, something has to give, meaning ports get shortened or eliminated. Another issue is wildlife protection zones. Several regions, including Alaska, Canada, parts of the Caribbean, and the Mediterranean, are introducing speed-restricted areas to protect whales, dolphins, and vulnerable coastal ecosystems. These rules are important for conservation, but they force ships to crawl through certain zones. Passengers will feel the impact, especially on itineraries with back-to-back port days. Slower speeds also mean that unexpected changes, such as weather delays, are harder to recover from. If a ship encounters bad weather and falls behind schedule, it can't simply speed up anymore. This could lead to more missed ports and revised itineraries at the last minute. Overall, these environmental rules are essential for the long-term health of our oceans, but they will dramatically change how cruising feels in 2026. Passengers should expect slower travel, more downtime at sea, and shorter adventures on land. It is not a deal-breaker, but it will reshape the rhythm of cruising in ways many travelers haven't experienced before. Bonus point: new deposit rules and stricter payment policies. There's one more change coming in 2026 that hasn't gotten much attention yet, but it is going to catch a lot of cruisers by surprise, and that's the introduction of new deposit rules and stricter payment policies. Up until now, most cruise lines have kept deposits fairly reasonable, allowing travelers to reserve a cabin with a small payment and then pay off the rest over time. But starting in 2026, several cruise companies are testing larger deposits, shorter final payment deadlines, and stricter cancellation policies. And these new rules could completely change how people plan their vacations. The first major shift is higher deposits. While some cruises currently require $100 to $250 per person to secure your cabin, many 2026 sailings, especially on newer ships, may require $300 to $500 upfront. For premium cabins, that number could go even higher. Cruise lines are doing this because demand has increased, and they want to make sure only serious customers hold reservations. It also gives them more financial stability early in the booking process. Another big change is stricter payment deadlines. Traditionally, passengers had until 60, 75, or even 90 days before sailing to make their final payment. But in 2026, we're seeing some lines move that cutoff to 120 days or 4 months before the trip. That means you'll have to finalize your payments earlier and commit sooner, which reduces flexibility. If something changes in your life, your schedule, your finances, or family plans, you won't have as much time to adjust or cancel. Cancellation penalties are also increasing. Many cruise lines are reducing the number of free cancellation days and increasing the fees for last-minute changes. Some are even testing non-refundable deposits on budget-friendly itineraries, meaning if you cancel, you lose your entire deposit with no credit. These policy changes won't be as dramatic or noticeable as itinerary changes or new onboard fees, but they will affect how people book and plan their vacations. Travelers will need to be more careful, more committed, and more prepared financially before locking in a cruise for 2026 and beyond. At the end of the day, cruising is still an amazing way to travel, but 2026 is bringing changes that every cruiser needs to be ready for. Higher fees, stricter itineraries, fewer included perks, more digital systems, slower travel speeds, and even tougher booking policies will all shape the experience in new ways. Being informed is the best way to avoid surprises and still enjoy an unforgettable vacation. If you found this video helpful, make sure to like, subscribe, and share it with other cruisers. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.